it is now my distinct privilege and pleasure to introduce and welcome Ambassador Dani Dayan to offer remarks.
עת לחשות ועת לדבר. A time to be silent and a time to speak. Those were the words of Ecclesiastes, of King Solomon. And Yom HaShoah is one of those extraordinary days in which we have to do both simultaneously, to speak and to be silent. That's the reason why this evening in Israel, for 2 minutes, the whole country came to a silent standstill. And then in thousands and thousands of homes, from northern Israel to its southern parts, families gathered in homes to speak into the night about the Shoah, about the Holocaust. 4 obligations we have as Jews on this day. The first one is to mourn. This is not a day to raise flags. This is a day to bow heads. On the rivers of Babylon, said the psalmist, and I would paraphrase and say that B'Neharot Manhattan, on the rivers of Manhattan, we sat and we wept as we remembered Auschwitz. Our second obligation is to know, and not only for the sake of the future, not only because in the future we will not have survivors to hear from them directly. We must know also in honor of the victims. We owe it to them. We owe to the small Jewish community of Varkovich that we know how they were carried to the forest in a dark, cold night and executed, their bodies thrown into the river. We owe to the Jewish community of the Greek island of Crete that we know how they're shipped in crowded boats and then in cattle trains for thousands of miles only to be gassed in Auschwitz. We owe to the congregation in Bialystok that was crammed into their synagogue and set afire, that we know what happened to them. Our third obligation, maybe the most difficult of all of them, is to try to feel. To try to feel what our brothers and sisters in Europe, what they went through. 2 weeks ago we read in the Haggadah, בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו יצא ממצרים. In every generation, a person has to see himself or herself as if he or she went out of Egypt. And today, since the Holocaust, בכל דור ודור חייב לראות אדם את עצמו כאילו יצא מאושוויץ. In every generation has a person to see himself or herself as if he or she personally were liberated from Auschwitz. And in some symbolic way to try to take on us, to share with us part of the suffering, of the burden that our brothers and sisters endured. And the fourth obligation is to learn lessons from the Holocaust. And I want to say clearly, There are many lessons from the Holocaust. And each one of us, as far as he's a decent person, as long as he's a decent person, is entitled to his own lessons, to her own lessons. Some of them universal, some of them national, some of them regarding the others, some of them regarding ourselves. And אלה ואלה דברי אלוהים חיים. Those and those are the word of a living God. But I also have my lesson. And my lesson is that the future of the Jewish people is guaranteed only by a strong Medinat Israel, by a country, a sovereign Jewish nation. So even when we have criticism and even when we dislike this or that policy, let's not forget, as long as Medinat Israel exists, the words Leolam V'lo Od, never again, will exist too.